Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our third IBC video episode of this year. We wanted to do a few more, but time didn't permit, so we only have three this year. But we saved the best for last. We have the Chaes today, so please give a warm welcome.
Here's my warm welcome.
So Karen and David, thank you for being a part of this episode. This is just really the brainchild of Gabe, and he just wanted to be able to introduce some of the members of the church and people. So thank you for giving us your time today. So let me start off by asking you a question we ask everybody. Just could you give us a brief explanation of your testimony and how you came to know the Lord? So either of you can go at any time.
You first? Okay. So I grew up in the church. When I grew up, I lived with my grandmother, my dad's mom, from my mom's side. And so she was with us until I was like about 5 or 6 and she passed away. But my dad was not a believer. My mom went to Catholic church, but my grandmother was a Christian. And so she made my mom take all of us to church. And so because of that, we grew up in the church and just always went to church. My dad never went to church with us. It was very sporadic off and on, but always went with my mom and then my grandmother until she passed away. And then after she passed away, my mom still kept taking us to church. And in junior high, accepted Jesus, realized that I was a sinner. Just really, my faith became real when I was in junior high. But I didn't have a lot of solid teaching at the church I was at. So it wasn't until I was in college when I started getting some solid teaching that I decided to get baptized. So it was a big gap between when I came to faith and when I got baptized. But I do believe that I came to faith when I was in junior high. And I was just trying to still figure things out because I didn't have a lot of guidance in terms of how to read the word, how to live my life in faith. And then when I actually started getting that teaching in college, I felt more comfortable to get baptized. So that's kind of where my journey was.
Was there anyone specifically that kind of influenced you or anything that kind of specifically pushed you to making that decision?
In college?
Yeah.
When I joined my Christian fellowship in college, I think just being around other believers who were more mature in their faith and getting expository teaching for the first time, I think that was a big change and a difference in how I viewed the word and read the word.
Okay, very nice. David?
Similar to Karen, I guess, just grew up in the church. My dad's a pastor, and my mom was just very influential in that way. Every day she would make sure we were reading our word, make sure we were praying and just doing various Christian things. And it wasn't until junior high, similar to Karen, that I went to a youth group camp, and Pastor Ben Shin, I think a lot of people know who he is. He was a guest speaker of that youth retreat, and he really broke down the word and broke down the gospel. Just similar from junior high to high school, wasn't really mature enough to, just live out the Christian faith. And so, but it wasn't until college that I really solidified everything, with under Gary and yourself, George, and just, with Gabe, just being around, just the college group. I went to Riverside and I was able to come back every weekend. And between my involvement with, KCM, at Riverside and, just going to college group every Friday. It was just really helpful. It just really gave me a good foundation of what Christianity is and just the different doctrines, just understanding, just understanding what Scripture is. So, and then I was able to go on missions during that time. I went to India twice. I was able to go to China as well. And so just all those things kind of came together. And it was. I believe I was similar to Karen. I was saved during junior high school, and I was baptized actually during junior high school. But everything really solidified for me during my college years, and those were more my formative years. So,
India, your mission trip to India. There are some great stories
Yeah.
from that trip. Would you like to share anything that maybe you learned or?
How about how you almost died?
yeah. So I went to India twice. I went in 2001 and 2003, and I actually was really inspired by the missionary there. He was just, the work that he did was tremendous, and so I wanted to go twice. So that's why I went the second time. But the second time around, there was just a lot of things that weren't going for me health-wise in terms of when I got there, like the weather was awful. It just seemed like between the first trip and the second trip, like everything was just that much worse the second time around. The weather was bad. The food wasn't nearly as, I thought the food wasn't great before, but it was worse this time around. And so I got really sick. And actually our itinerary, we had to go around the country. We went around, we took like 6 or 7 train rides, maybe like 3 or 4 of them were 20, 30 hours. And so a lot of the team members actually got sick. It was kind of, not to speak poorly about the missions organization I went through, but it was more of like a who could suffer the most type of thing. And so we suffered, and we suffered pretty well. So I ended up getting pneumonia at the end of the trip. It was a month-long trip, and I ended up getting pneumonia. And I just wanted to go home, but on the way home from India to LA, we got on our layover in Taiwan. It was like during the era of SARS, and so we got stuck in the airport because they wouldn't let me go back on the plane because they saw that I was lying down and I had this fever and I was just sweating like crazy, and so they wouldn't let me go back on the plane. So they took me in an ambulance, and so I was stuck in Taiwan for 3 days, and I lost like 25 pounds or something like that during that time.
Missions is the best diet.
Yeah, so it was a pretty intense time, but actually it was one of those times where I think I don't think a lot of the people at our church knew what was going on because I went with a separate organization, and that was when like NAM was thinking about like flying out to Taiwan, and I think Japan was going on too, the missions trip to Japan, and so no one knew what was going on. It was a little bit crazy during that time, but I gave everybody a good scare during that time. But grateful for my health now, and just even as crazy as that time was, the Lord was good and faithful in that time.
I mean, we laugh about it now, but when it was going on, there was some serious concern on the side.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember talking with Nam and Gary and saying, dude, we have no understanding of what's going on because we're not getting information.
Yeah.
And so I know your parents were concerned, your whole family was concerned. I mean, there's some people literally thought that you were on your deathbed and stuff, right? So, holy smokes, that's why it's good to go through a church and not an organization.
Yes, go through a church.
Right. Good, funny. I mean, there's plenty more stories from India. Ask him when you want, So continue on. Can you give us a little background on what service you have done currently or have in the past for the church?
So currently, I'm the deaconess of women's ministry. So that includes planning women's Bible studies, any women's fellowships, women's equip hours, anything that's specifically for the women of IBC, our church. I plan and organize. I also teach Sunday school. I've done nursery. What else? That's pretty much it. Children's ministry. But currently, I do women's ministry.
And for myself, I was in charge of the men's ministry, and now Andre has taken that over. So we're just planning different events, just men's conference and men's hike. And then before that, I was part of the youth staff. Just did that for 3-4 years, and just leading small groups there. And then before that, it was just a lot of opening and closing the church, and just clean up. Making sure that everything was
manual labor ministry.
Yeah. So, but for the most part,
you teach Sunday school now.
yeah, I don't know if I teach Sunday school. She does all the teaching, but
We teach Sunday school together.
I just make sure to do the memory verse, and
What grade do you guys teach together?
First grade.
so
I taught Sunday school at this church 1 year, and that's all that the kids could handle. I mean, I was probably the world's worst Sunday school teacher, so it's probably best that I don't teach Sunday school ever again. What would you say in terms of like the different ministries that you guys have done and served in at the church, like some of the challenges, or maybe even on the flip side, some of the things that you've learned personally from doing that ministry?
I think when it comes to children's ministry, it's always just like a catch-up game because we have so many kids, right? And it's a lot about like human resources meeting the needs of like a growing ministry in a timely manner. So it's always hard to just kind of keep up with that. But I think we've been doing a good job, and I think we make the most of what we have. And it's always growing and learning and adjusting and being flexible with those things. For women's ministry, it's what for me it was kind of like learning how to specifically organize and mobilize women in our church, because I think it's different for every groups of people. Like you would have a different mindset for children, you would have a different mindset for youth, you would have a different mindset for college, for singles, for working, same for women and men, right? It's not, you don't have the same approach for every single group in ministry. And so not having done women's ministry before, a lot of the first couple of years is just learning like what really motivates women to come to fellowship events and Bible studies, what really moves people to want to be involved, not just come, but want to be involved, and what really benefits women of our church. Like what are the needs? What are the wants? Like how do we provide those needs and wants? And so a lot of it is just figuring that stuff out. And then once you figure that stuff out, it's creating a system, or I don't want to say a formula, but some kind of way to work around all those things in like a systematic way. So it's not always like you're building the boat, like as you do it, you want to like be systematic about it, but really also be intentional about it. So it's always just reevaluating and evaluating and thinking and like, how did this go? And how many people came? And what did they think those people came? Why didn't these people came? So it's always just, I guess for every ministry you're in, you kind of have to evaluate all the time with every event, with everything you do, how it went and how you can do better. And if it met its goal, like if you had a goal, I don't know.
Would you be willing to share like some of your insights on what drives people to participate in women's ministry?
Yeah, I think for women, particularly what I've learned is that women appreciate a sense of belonging when they're together, a sense of togetherness when they're together. I don't know if it's the same for men or children, but for women particularly, if we're going to do a Bible study, it's beneficial to also have some sort of opportunity for women to connect, not just like a teaching time, but also a connection time. Like involving or having a time of connection in everything that we plan really makes the ladies feel connected and involved. And I feel like those things keep the women coming, and it really benefits them spiritually. And like when they leave, they just seem more filled. I don't know. Yeah. So that's just what I noticed, especially about church. Because we are a commuter church too, I think they treasure the times when we're together, not just the teaching times, which they really do treasure too, but also beyond that, the times of connection, the times of fellowship, the times of being able to just be with one another and to just form a connection relationship in that way. And I think like the structure of that too, having a structure, because sometimes like organically it can happen, but for women, I've noticed that to form sort of structure with it, to let them have that space is really beneficial.
That's good insight. That's really good insight. How about you, Dave? Just in terms of some of the challenges, or maybe some of the things that you maybe have learned through doing men's ministry and some other things.
I think a lot of my issues come from me within, in terms of like my insecurities and like, you know, if you think about like wanting to do an event, it's like, will people like it? Will people, you know, will people come? Will people appreciate it? You know, and so I think that was one thing for me that was a really big hurdle to go over, was just kind of getting over that and just doing the event, you know, and just, hey, you know, I'm gonna put this out there. I'm gonna do the best I can, and if people come, they come. If they don't, they don't. You know, and so, yeah, and I'm sure when people plan events in general, people have those fears, and so that kind of overtook me a little bit, and that's why I didn't want to do too many, and I just wanted to do maybe like 1 or 2 per year, so that I could just do it well, and I could think it through a little bit. But yeah, I think that was my biggest challenge was, and even like with youth ministry, you know, I mean, I was 34 or 35 and between 35 and 40 when I did that, and I was just like, I don't know if these youth kids want to hang out with me, you know, kind of thing. It was a lot of that, like, who wants to hang out with like a 34 or 35-year-old kind of thing. And so it was kind of getting over that. But the kids were great. They accepted me. They, you know, they
accepted you.
Yeah, they took me
with
in
all
a little
your
bit.
flaws.
Yes, they took a lot of, yeah, and it was, I wasn't the easiest person to talk to or anything like that, but I think just letting that go is always the hardest challenge. Is just kind of letting go of those, hey, you know what, like, I can't feel sorry for myself. I just have to put myself out there and let the Lord lead the way from there, you know. So I think a lot of those challenges kind of were with me. So I think part of the reason why I like doing like opening and closing and all, because it's like it doesn't involve people sometimes. And so it gets tough for me. So I've become this introvert.
But we need people to open and close too.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, of course. And but I just wanted to do. Yeah, I think that was my biggest hurdle. Was just, it's not like I didn't want to do those things. It was more, yeah, overcoming.
You just didn't want to do it with the people.
Yeah. So if I could do it by myself, it would be great, you know. So.
Do you feel like, in terms of youth group, if you were younger, like in your 20s, that just the thinking would have been different, like you participating?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
I mean, just you have more energy when you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
Being youth group is, well, I was never
It's
officially
exhausting.
on staff, but like having to help him.
Yeah.
Not that it's just exhausting. In order for to see growth and I don't want to say outcomes, but to see growth in students at that age, you have to give 110%. Yeah. Because really that's what it takes for the kids to reciprocate any sort of energy. Like, you have to give that same and more. And so it's just tiring in that sense when you're that much older than that. But not to say like it's not doable. It's totally doable. It's just, you know, it takes a lot of work.
It does. That's why I was probably a terrible youth group leader as well, too. So Sunday school and youth group was probably not my ministry, you know.
Hey, it's okay. You could still do it.
That's why I think I was good at closing and opening myself, too, you know. All right. Well, that's good insight, just in terms of your ministries. So how did you both come to IBC, and how did you guys become, how long have you been a member of our church?
You should probably go first.
Yeah. So a long time ago, I think in '96, my dad had a Korean ministry in Hollywood, and it was called LASC. And so I was going to that church, and then that same year, NAM and my dad kind of joined forces, and so they formed their own church. And then the name was called IBC. We changed the name to IBC, and then from there, I think just naturally, we just kind of separated ways. It wasn't like a bad split or anything
It's
like
like
that. It was
English,
just, yeah,
Korean ministry.
And then I just ended up going to IBC. So I've been going to IBC since the church started, and that was when I was in high school. Now I'm 40, so it's one of those things, like, it's been a long time. So all like, what, 24?
We say he's the prince of IBC.
Wow.
So all 24 years of IBC have been around, you know. So yeah, I mean, I always think of Becca, and just when Becca was born, that's when IBC started. And but yeah, since high school, I've been going. So I was part of the youth group when IBC started, and then I was part of the college group, the original college group when IBC started. So Yeah, it's been a long time.
History.
Yeah.
I mean, even before that, like Nam and Kathy were his fourth grade Bible study teachers or Sunday school teachers.
Yeah.
I think Annie Wayne.
Yeah, Annie was part of a Sunday school teacher, and then
Annie Song.
And then Gary was, he wasn't like, but he would speak at a lot of the youth group camps that we would go to. So, I have a long history with a lot of people at our church, and it's nice.
There's a great Halloween story, Sunday school, from you being in Nam's class too.
Yeah. I always thought, and I have this awful view of Halloween, and so
because it's the devil's holiday.
So my mom and dad actually never let me like trick or treat or anything like that because it was always associated with the devil, and so when Kathy Park, when I asked, I was really into my birthday, and so I asked Kathy one day during our Sunday school meeting, hey, when's your birthday? And then she's like, oh, it's October, and I was like, oh, it's the devil's month. And I was just like, and next, I was just kind of saying it in passing, and so. I meant no disrespect in that sense, but yeah,
to Kathy,
it was just one of those things. I was just telling Kathy in a way that she was from the devil, but she's not. So.
I think that's one of the the dangers, if you could call it, of being in the church from when you were young, because there's a lot of memories that you put into to the life of the church from when you were young, right? So. And these stories will never go away, right? You could go into your 50s and they'll still come back up, So, all right, that's good. How about you, Karen?
So I started coming to IBC when we were dating in 2005. We had been dating like over a year. And then I started coming to IBC so that we could get married.
Not a bad plan.
Dave pretty much said while we were dating, it's like, oh, I will propose once you come over to my church and I see how things are at IBC and how we do ministry together. I was like, sign me up. I'm there.
Wow, I did not know
putting in my
this.
resignation for my old church. So I started coming after, it was like a year after we started dating. 2005, I think, maybe late 2004. But I became a member in 2005, right?
Yeah.
I think so. And then we got engaged in 2005, got married in 2006, and got married in 2006. So it's been a while too. Yeah.
Would you care to kind of tell your story on how you guys got together at all?
No, thank you. Just kidding. I don't know. Okay.
I mean, it's up to you. I don't want to put you on the spot.
I was at UCLA KCM.
Yes, UCLA. She went to UCLA.
I went to UCLA. I did not go to Riverside. UCLA KCM for my campus fellowship. Dave was at UC Riverside for his campus fellowship, or KCM for his campus fellowship. And every year, the KCMs from all the different campuses have a winter retreat called University Retreat. And so 2003, we were both on staff for that retreat. That's how we met. And then stuff, details in between, and then here we are.
Yes.
Okay.
All the years later, but that's how we met.
All right. No, that's great. If you want to know the genuine stories, you could talk to them on your own.
No, please don't. Please don't.
There's some good stuff in there too. So, what's kept you here at IBC for all these years? I mean, specifically for you, Dave, because you've been here since the beginning as well.
Yeah, I think I always value the small church feel, and I always admired our elders in terms of their vision and their philosophy in terms of making sure that people, that they show care for everybody, and it's just a really personal place, where people could grow and people can learn, and so I've always admired, Nam and Gary and George and all the elders here, and just for their heart for ministry and for people. And it was never about like the numbers or, the money or anything like that. It's always about just people and investing in people's lives. And so I'm very fortunate that people at this church have invested in my life. And I feel indebted to that in a way, I'm just grateful that, the older guys who are here and who've left as well, they've, always asked how I'm doing and showed care. They would visit me at Riverside, or they'd be there for me. And especially, when I was sick in India, or just for different parts of my life, I've just been blessed with so many people who've influenced me. So this church has always been good to me. And God has been good to me through. So I just feel to a certain extent indebted. And yeah.
I think too, we're both kind of in agreement in terms of our belief and thinking of church, like our theology of church, in terms of it's not something we feel like can just be changed, by simple decisions. We both kind of agree and try to adhere by the fact that like we want to serve a local church in the longevity of things, like there's purpose and there's meaning in serving for the long haul, right? And unless there's some crazy extenuating circumstance for us to leave, there really would not be a reason for us to go, and I think that's just something we've always agreed on. We've always kind of believed. And like, if there was no children's ministry, like we would still be here, like all those things, like, we talked about that stuff. And if something were to happen, like if we have to move or something, then of course, like we would have to leave. But I think just for us personally, we want to just try to stay at one church for as long as we can and try to see things through. Like the church has seen ups and downs, like, we know. And through those things, I feel like we've had those hard conversations about church, and ultimately it always ends up with there's no reason not to be here, and so I think it always comes back to that. Yeah.
That's good. I appreciate that. Again, I've been here from the beginning too, and there's been definitely downs and ups. But I think that through the growing pains, our church has definitely benefited overall. I could see just even in recent times, right? Yeah. There's a lot of good things happening in the church, and that's really attributed to more faithful people in the church just stepping up and taking care of things. So it's definitely an encouragement to myself and so many other people. What about a specific memory? Anything that kind of stands out to you from all the years you've been at the church? Whether it's a good memory, a funny memory, or maybe even a bad memory. Because overall, when you look back on it, even if it's a bad moment, like you almost dying, again, we laugh about it now, but it was not a laughing matter back then, right? So any particular memories that kind of stand out?
I think for us, it's hard to pinpoint a memory because church is so intertwined with our lives, right? Like Dave has been coming to IBC since it started. I've been coming to IBC since before we got engaged. All our kids have been born through IBC. Like that's all they know. We, to our best ability, try to come every Sunday, try to go to all the things, do all the things, be involved, serve as much as we can. So really our lives very much are intertwined with whatever IBC is doing. And so a lot of our family memories are IBC memories. A lot of our relational friend memories are IBC memories. Like all those fun times we've had, like when we went to Swan's for dinner for the singles, that fun night, or when we before we were all married and we would go and have dinners together, or when we used to have flock at Anne's house at down at Park La Brea. All those things are just, I feel like us growing up and living our lives is very intertwined with IBC. I mean, particularly even our wedding. I remember somebody saying our wedding was probably one of the first weddings in a long time. IBC hadn't seen a lot of weddings, and then we got married, and then there was a ton of weddings after we had gotten married. So we're kind of the first of an ongoing series of marriages and weddings, and then the next couple years. But just even our wedding, having everybody at the church help with the wedding, everybody just helped out. We were poor just out of college kids with like no money and didn't really know what to do. And there was no Pinterest. Like we just, like what's the cheapest buffet we could get? We didn't really know. But everybody at IBC got us through those things. Like, people helped out. People were setting up things for us, like all the things for the wedding. And that was such a long time ago. But, we wouldn't have been able to get through from our wedding to like even when our kids were born, even like when we went through everything with Eden, like when Eden was born and she passed away, like all those things, we wouldn't have been able to get through without IBC. And so in the way that Dave says that he feels indebted to IBC, I think in that sense, that's kind of what he's speaking to, because our lives have been so intertwined with everything that happens with the church and the people and what they've done for us. And even with what happened with Eden, when she was born, 10 days after she was born, she passed away, which was really hard and devastating for us. But like things that you wouldn't expect or want anybody to do for you without asking, like the church was just there and they did everything. From planning like the memorial, like we didn't do anything for that, I don't think. We just showed up. People would drop off groceries to our doorstep. Like we don't even know who did it. They would drop off meals. The church sent us to Hawaii to like recuperate and to like be with family, to like, and like just stuff like that really doesn't just mean a lot. It's ingrained in our lives, I think. And so in terms of like memories, there's definitely like fun things that we have done, we've experienced. We have lots of memories with individual people and groups and stuff and that kind of stuff. It's just fun to remember. But there's also things that were really hard that we went through together as a family, like an IBC family. Like even though specifically our family went through it, I really felt like our whole entire church went through it together as a family. And I think that means something, It just, even though you don't feel particularly close to maybe an individual at church, just knowing that they're grieving with you brings you closer together. I think that's meaningful.
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, having lost both parents and such, when my brother got married at Grace, right, the reception was in the what is it called? The gym, yeah. And so there was about approximately 600 to 700 people there.
A lot of people.
Man, I don't remember anybody at the wedding. I don't even remember the family members who were actually there. But I think that when my mother passed away, and the funeral itself, I could still remember the line of people coming to greet us. So so in that sense, I think one of my encouragements to people is, even if you say nothing to the individual, just you being there is going to be imprinted in the person's mind that you were there to support them. And I think that's really a meaningful thing. So, yeah. I mean, I think that time when you guys lost Eden, our church was small enough where the entire church was supporting you guys at that time. So I know it was very difficult. I remember having conversations with some people and such too, and just my brother, just all the things that went on. So, I think that was an encouraging moment for me too.
I think it was like we in the moment were going through a trial, and so in the moment we didn't know that the church was hurting and like going through things and talking to each other and like praying for her during service. Like we didn't know those things because we are in the moment, like just trying to survive. That's right. But then it's after those moments, like when we're like coming out of the fog, like when we're coming out of those moments for ourselves, where like you see the corporate grief, which is like, not to like make it sound light or anything, but like like when you see the corporate grief of like the church, I don't want to say it makes you feel better, but it's meaningful, And I think it's just being able to see people just grieve corporately. I think even like in the past, like just recently with Gary's mom, just like everybody just being together and really grieving together. And like a lot of people personally didn't know Gary's mom, but like even still, like there's still sadness, there's still grief, there's still, all those things. So I think in that sense, our church is really like a family. Like when I see those times, and I can really relate to people in a familial way, like during those times. And I think during that time the most, like people that I wasn't particularly close to, I could still like really relate to them like in a familial family way because they knew my heartache even though I don't have to tell them, right? So yeah.
How about you, Dave? Anything that kind of stands out in terms of a memory?
I mean, along with everything that Karen mentioned, I always think about our college group days. It's just, it was funny.
It was silly.
It was silly.
The weekly trips to Elephant
you guys were
Bar?
dumb.
Yeah, and then we went to Elephant Bar every week, and we'd all gain whatever, like 20, 30 pounds of self-time.
I don't even think Elephant Bar exists anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's around.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
For all the millennials out there,
Yeah.
Elephant Bar was a restaurant.
And but yeah, I mean, we would go to like either Bob's Big Boy or it was cool to be around college group every week, and it was definitely like worth the drive coming from Riverside over to the Red Cross in Glendale at the time, and just growing with the guys, even though we messed around a lot, and even though we just play video games or we just hang out kind of thing. It just ended up being one of the most important times of my life too, where things were solidified for me and things made more sense to me. Just even listening to Gary's messages week in and week out, and just getting a good solid like why do we believe Scripture, like why is Scripture so important, and understanding that hey, everything needs to be based around Scripture, or else we're just making up our own religion kind of thing after that. So yeah, I mean, I whenever I think of IBC, I always just think of those college group years and just all those guys that were around and were hanging out every week, and yeah, I mean, I think those were some fun years.
I don't know if you were there that night, but me and Gary were living in Burbank at the time, and George Wolf, who was in the college group at the time, along with Danny Park, he calls me, I think at 11:30 in the evening. He says, hey, George, man, you want to watch The Usual Suspects? I go, sure. He goes, yeah, we'll do a time. And he goes, no, tonight. I go, tonight, it's 11:30, dude. And he goes, no, come on, man, you're gonna love it. So he actually came. Were you there that night?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay. Well, him and Danny came, and I think maybe one or two others.
Yeah.
I was so tired that I watched the first 10 minutes of Usual Suspects. I fell asleep, and I woke up right at the end. When Kaiser Sose, his foot. And I go, okay, well, what just happened? I missed the entire plot of the movie, and so, I mean, I just say that because I think the college group guys, they just love spending time, just random hours of the week and stuff. So, man, that was a taxing on my body too. Maybe I shouldn't have been a college group leader too, along with
every age, George.
I think now you have to do nursery. I think that's the only thing that's left for you.
Oh, the kids, they will never be the same if that's the case.
Like, hey, stop, quit your crying.
Since you guys have been at the church for a long time, and do you guys have any feedback on some things that maybe we could do better at? I mean, there's always room for improvement, of course, right? But just certain suggestions that you might have for the church now that you would like to see us grow in, per se, in any area.
Yes. No, I think in all the years of serving at IBC, a lot of like just learning over the years and kind of just really learning within myself too, what kind of person I am in terms of how I serve the church. I think I've relinquished a lot of, I don't want to say like demands, but just relinquished a lot of, I don't want to say hopes either. Just say demands. Demands are
fine.
They're just things that like I feel like would make the church better, right? Because sometimes I feel like the type of personality that I have, like I'm very like type A, like organization, ABC equals D, like that's just who I am. But learning over the years that not everybody is like me. Our church elders are appointed by the Lord. Like my view of how things should be done, it isn't necessarily how things should be done. And I think in that sense, like I really have my opinions, as everybody does, but at the same time, examining, like it's taken me a long time to get here. Like it's not like I have thought this always, but really like struggling through and like, why do I think this needs to be improved? Why do I think this is not good enough, right? And like instead of just saying what I think should be improved or what is not good enough, but examining like, why do I think that in the beginning, only the first place? And in the end, like, you know, I think like, of course, there are things that we could do better, right? Like, of course, we could be better at cleaning up our rooms when we leave, you know, we could be better at like, I don't know, like everybody pitching in versus just a small group of people. Like all those things I think are for the par, like with church, like with any church, like those things, issues come up. Specifically, I think, you know, our church could be better at really encouraging the congregation to seek those harder, deeper relationships with one another. I think, you know, our church naturally has a lot of issues that they confront just by way of being a commuter church. I think like we have natural obstacles just by way of the way our church is set up. Because we're a commuter church, it's just hard, you know, like we're not here every day. We don't meet midweek. Like those things I think really are obstacles for a lot of people at our church. And so I think sometimes maybe we need to recognize those obstacles, right? And kind of not just as a leadership, but as a congregation, and really like encourage people to, hey, like these are the obstacles that we face. Like what can we do as a congregation, as a church, to overcome these obstacles together and not just rely on the leadership to overcome it for us, right? Because I do like the people who come to our church are wonderful people. Like we love everybody who comes to our church. But sometimes I feel like we don't recognize those obstacles, right, to begin with. And so in that sense, like, just like it's hard to get to know people, it's hard to really develop relationships with people that you don't see at flock, right? And so how can we do that? I think ultimately, like, we just want to get to know people. We want to like be with people, and we want to be comfortable, and we want to be able to have those relationships that are spiritually meaningful, not just casually like meaningful, like on a Sunday, right? So how do we do that? I don't know.
What about you, Dave?
Myself, I think it's for everybody to invest in the church.
In Bitcoin?
Yeah. In Bitcoin. No, invest in the church. And
That too.
Amen. That's okay. No, but yeah, just, I mean, we're talking about the treasure principle right now during flock, and you know, more than just financial giving, you know, I think just to kind of surround yourselves, and really give yourselves to other people and their time and their energy, you know, and you have room for that. You know, the church really wants that, and so I think if we give our lives to other people, if we open up to other people, we open up our homes to other people, we serve the church more. I think those are things that, because the church is worth it, you know, and I just hope that we really, I think everybody, as our church gets bigger, you know, we kind of, we lose that small church field to a certain extent, but I mean, God has blessed us with more people. And so I feel like right now is the time to kind of just say, hey, you know what, like invest your time in other people and seek them out a little bit more, you know? And I think if we could do that, and I see like people like Mike Chow, Dennis, you know, Bryant, you know, just the way they're doing ministry, and just how effective they are. They just pour themselves out there, you know, and put themselves out there. And so just something to look up to. And so I encourage everybody just to do that. And for me, I'm more on the introverted side. I kind of I'm my own shell a little bit, but at the same time, I mean, you don't have to do it to like hundreds of people, just maybe one or two people here and there, just to talk to them individually and one-on-one. I mean, I think the Lord will totally bless that. And I think the elders really want that too here. So
I think like culturally, like where we live in LA, right? And then the nature of our church as a community church, I think it's just, it's very like, it's easy to be in the mindset of waiting to serve people or to be of service to people, and to see like where are the opportunities before you jump in and make an opportunity for yourself, right? And I think like that's kind of just like our battle against culture too, is always being comfortable versus sacrificing time and like your human resources and your time. And I think in terms of like ministry philosophy, like it's not easy, but what we always talk about is like ministry is painful in the sense that like it takes up a lot of time, and it's very like it's not convenient for a lot of things that you want to do or like for your family, and in that sense it's very countercultural, especially where we live, right? Because a lot of the times like culture is telling us that things that are easy are right? Like when things are easy and they fall into place, then that's the right thing. But really, like for ministry, that's not how usually it is. Like just being in ministry, like just serving for like both of us for so long, it's like it's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of like investing a lot of your time and a lot of your resource into people, into relationships, and that stuff is not easy, right? It's not easy. And so, but that's the right thing to do, because like church is worth it, people are worth it. And I think just really challenging people to think about like what is the sacrifice that I can make to invest in the church. All
right, that's well said. In 317, we have 3 principles that we came out with, and one of them is care over comfort. And it's pretty much what you guys have been saying for the last few minutes. It's the idea that when you're caring for somebody, it doesn't always fit into your schedule. It doesn't make it convenient, right? But I think that if you serve someone or you care for someone, even though it's not convenient, even though it's not fitting into your schedule, I think it even says that much more about the care itself. And that's what our Lord did to us. So.
And we're 100% guilty of choosing comfort over or convenience over care. I hope people don't think that like we're always 100% choosing to sacrifice and care over people. No, that's not the case. We battle this every day, and every time like we have to make a decision. And so it's not easy. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not an easy thing.
I mean, for me too, I love comfort. I come home and it's just quiet. There's nobody bugging me, no nagging anywhere. It just, oh my goodness.
Sounds like a nice life, George.
Yeah, it's a great life. Well, let me just wrap this up by just asking you just kind of a last question. Is basically just, you guys have been around the church for a long time, but is there something that you would wish somebody is there something that you would want people to know about you that maybe we don't know? You could tell us your deepest, darkest secrets if you want, or just something superficial.
No.
No, he doesn't want to do it. Like, I'll say yours. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want the pressure.
Yeah.
Want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
I want people to know that I'm nice.
Okay.
Very nice.
All right.
I think people like see me leading things, and it's like, I know how to like take control of an event. And I think people see me in terms of like those positions, and I don't know if it's intimidating or whatever, but sometimes I've heard that like people are scared of me or intimidated, or but like look at me, like I'm joking 100% of the time of like whatever conversation I have. I just want people to know that like, come to me and talk to me, and like I will give you a hug and warmly welcome you. But also, Yeah, I don't want people to be intimidated by me. Like, I don't want people to be intimidated by me at all. And if they are, I want them to tell me so that I won't be intimidated to other people. I want them to, I want to be. Yeah, that's what I want people to know.
Okay. How about you, Dave?
I just want people to know that I know other things outside of sports.
I was going to say that.
I could talk about Jesus once in a while.
It's Pastor Dave's fault.
Yeah.
Because every time he rebukes people for liking the Dodgers, he looks straight at Dave. He looks straight at Dave.
Yeah, it's always after a victory that he has dude, and Dave always calls the Dodgers out for some reason. I'm like, man, let me enjoy the victory, But no, I while I do like baseball and volleyball, whatever sport, I do love Jesus too. So I don't mind talking about Jesus once in a while, with you guys. And so I go as deep as
only
you
once in a while.
So, but no, but I enjoy. I really enjoy the one-on-one conversations. Whatever topic it's about, I may not know a lot about it, but I do like listening to people too. And I may not ask the right questions or response questions, but I actually do enjoy a lot of one-on-one conversations, and whatever you want to talk about, I'll try to talk about, except for like movies and stories and stuff. But,
everything that I want to talk about, he doesn't want to talk about.
Yeah.
This is basically what he's saying.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting the picture of the marriage here,
It's very,
It's okay. We can compartmentalize our likes and dislikes. And
Well, I mean, I can definitely say that, and I've known you, Dave, for a long time, and we've had many conversations outside of just sports. And I would say that the vast majority of it has not been about sports, if I could say. So I think that, you definitely have more knowledge base than just Dodgers. And just to you, Karen, I think I think that people can get intimidated because you speak your mind, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. If I actually had
I'm working on it, George, okay?
If I had a team that I was building at work, I would want people like that, because you kind of know where they stand. And I like that. I like the type A personality, get it done. And a part of it is, growing up, I felt like all Korean women were just so strong personalities, because that was the experience of my own family. All my grandmothers, man, they're crazy strong personality. This is the way we do it. My mother and my aunts and everything. So that's the only Korean woman that I ever knew. And then later on, I found out that there's actually people that are kind of soft-spoken. I'm like, what? This is shocking.
Saying this reference in that it's not me, which is fine. And it is, I know that I speak my mind, and I appreciate that you like it. Yeah. But it's also like my Achilles heel, in the sense that it's like it's something I work on. Like, he's laughing, David. No, for the audio, Dave is laughing. That is something I need to work on. But it's a work in progress. I think there's a time and a place, right, George?
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean that genuinely. I like it when people speak their mind to me, because I know what you're thinking. I don't want to have to guess what you're thinking. Just tell me, right? Because sometimes I'm going to guess wrong, and sometimes I'm not going to know, right? So I appreciate that, and I appreciate
filing that away into my brain.
Go ahead.
For George Park, I know. Okay.
So I do appreciate you guys being on the podcast. I think that the audience is probably going to have a good laugh just looking through and some of the stories that were shared and such. And there's plenty more, just
part B to come.
So let me just say thank you very much. And, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the time. So, right.
Were we waving to the camera? Thanks.